As of the end of January 2021, there are over 2.1 million dead and over 100 million confirmed infections of COVID-19. Though given the virus's mortality rate of 1% and the fact that we know not all infected get tested, the actual number of infected is closer to 210 million. To give this some perspective, the average deaths per year globally from the flu was about 390,000, and that's with no lockdowns, quarantines, masks, or social distancing. So COVID-19 has killed more than 5 times as many people despite lockdowns, quarantines, masks, and social distancing happening. But how much of a difference do all those measures make? Were the lockdowns and mandatory masks really worth it? Did they actually make a difference? Or were the leaders who ordered the lockdowns and masks draconian thugs? Did the leaders who chose to ignore or downplay the threat or leave it up to their citizens act negligently? Let's look at a report card of how well some countries have handled the pandemic and see what the numbers tell us. The selections for this report card will be based on a sampling of countries who did little to address the pandemic, those who took average precautions, and those that took extreme precautions. For the countries who took more relaxed approach to the pandemic, we will look at the USA, the UK, Brazil, and Sweden. For countries that had an average response to the pandemic, we will look at Canada, Germany, Netherlands, and Austria. And for the countries that took the pandemic crisis the most seriously, we will look at China, Australia, India, and Finland. For a more apples-to-apples comparison, we will be looking at the percentage of the population of each of these countries that are infected rather than total infections in order to account for differences in population. In addition, we will be using their reported fatalities times 100, taking into account the 1% mortality rate, rather than the reported infections to get a more accurate number and so as not to skew the data based on which countries did more testing. Here is our report card. As you can see, countries who ignored or downplayed the virus or made precautions voluntary had the highest infection rates, with the percentage of their population infected in the double digits. Countries who took the problem somewhat seriously but responded late or only made some of their restrictions mandatory had the percentage of their population infected in the mid to high single digits. And the countries that took the crisis seriously and made precautions mandatory kept their infections to only 1% of their population or less. All these countries suffered economic losses. None of them avoided that regardless of how seriously they took the issue. For a more stark contrast, Canada and the USA share the world's longest border and are culturally similar. Also, Sweden and Finland share a border and have similar cultures. The conclusion here is clear. Those who chose not to take the issue seriously cost lives and gained no significant benefit. If you want to know how your country ranks on the Year 1 COVID report card, take the total number of COVID fatalities as of the end of January 2021, multiply it by 100 to get the number of infected, that's the 1% mortality rate, then divide the result by the total population and multiply that by 100 to get your percentage of the population infected. How did your country stack up?